Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mundane Matt, and we are a long ways away from election 2020. Long ways away. And however you feel about the current president, we already know that there are people out there that are getting ready to put in their bid to run against him in the next election. Now, he'll basically get the Republican Party nomination, right? He's already campaigning already. Whatever, I'm not going to talk about that, but he's doing it. And so some people out there are already trying to figure out who's going to run on the Democratic side. Personally, I would like to see Bernie Sanders give another 2020 run without being hindered by the DNC. But that's not going to happen because the DNC basically just voted for more of the same. And so I'm officially done with them. Got no faith left in the DNC. Where does that leave a person like me? Well, definitely on the independent side of things, where I would like there to be a person who comes along and wants to work for everybody. But what I don't want is another billionaire running the show. I don't want another billionaire running the show, especially like Mark Zuckerberg, which leads me to this particular article on Salon.com saying, or basically trying to make the case for Mark Zuckerberg to run for president in 2020. And part of this has to do with a couple factors that lead me to believe that he's either considering to run for president or maybe Senate, right? Definitely not representative, because he's a fucking billionaire, Jesus Christ. According to the article, they're saying like he's going to visit all 50 states this year, which apparently is something big. He hired a former Obama campaign person to help him run. He's been more politically active, especially about immigration. So he's got a lobbyist group that he owns. He converted back to Judaism and dropped being an atheist. I think that had a lot to do with the birth of his daughter, which makes me that has just been kind of an odd thing for me. Why would you, an atheist, go back to being Jewish because you had a kid? I mean, you would understand if you went as far as to basically drop all religions, become an atheist, you understand that the concept of God, while interesting, is generally based on falsehoods. So you want to go back to that? For what reason? Right? It could only be political. If you want my honest opinion, it could only be political. And I know there might be some religious people out there that are disagreeing with me on that, and that's perfectly fine. But from my standpoint, a person doesn't drop religion, go to atheism, and then go back to religion after becoming a billionaire, right? And then without there being a specific reason. Now, here's the thing. Religion played no part in the 2020 election, and thank God for that. Because that was one of the most annoying things out of just recent elections, has been like that, I gotta go to church, I gotta get the Christians to vote for me. No, fuck that shit. Religion should stay out of politics and vice versa. But that's what's been going on. He's also denied being interested in becoming president, right? Telling BuzzFeed no, which apparently is, according to this particular author, a clear sign that he is intending to run. But if he runs, do we want a technocrat in office? Right? Like, look at how, okay, the whole idea behind this article has a lot to do with the upcoming movie The Circle, starring Tom Hanks and Emma Watson, which is based on a young adult novel set again in kind of a more lighthearted kind of dystopian future where everyone is connected, everything is online, privacy is completely transparent, no one has their secrets, so on and so forth. And that is kind of the world that might stem from someone like Mark Zuckerberg. And the author of this piece is basically trying to say, like, that's fucking holy shit. Like, that could be something, right? And her big thing here is that if he runs and he wins, then it would bring a millennial into the fold. Then that would open up to millennial ideals and bring in more millennials into the political space. And I'm just, as a person who kind of is in that weird gap, right, of like Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and millennial, right? I'm definitely less on the millennial side. I was born in 82. Millennials apparently born in 85. But I was still a teenager at the turn of the century. So it's kind of, again, it's very weird however you look at it. I don't really know where I fit. But I guess I'm kind of in that age. I turned 35 in like 2 weeks. So I'm kind of about that age. I don't want millennials having a say in politics. Not yet. Not yet. Because from what I view, from what I witness, from what I see, millennials have been granted this great thing, right? They haven't had to work for as much as the previous generations, and that is just the natural evolution of life. past generations work hard, pave the way for future generations, so on and so forth. But with every generation, life does get just kind of intrinsically easier, or at least more comfortable, depending on how things are being, progressed. We're now living in the digital age, the technological age, right? We have our phones, whereas when I was a kid, like my kid will have a tablet and they'll be connected to the internet 24/7. That's where they're going to do their work. I had to get a 14.4 dial-up modem to access fucking the old fucking AOL, and then also the old the BBS boards and everything else. I taught myself IRC back in the day. Like, that was my upbringing, was that version of the internet. Now it's accessible from this at a moment's notice. You know what I mean? But ultimately, and I do agree with what this article says, if he wins, it kind of legitimizes the millennial mindset. It would very much be a line in the sand for the new world and the old world. And that is very much where we're at. There is a paradigm shift. Baby boomers are growing older and they're getting ready to die off in the next generation. Millennials are coming of age and they are getting ready to move into the workforce. The workforce that is not entirely there for them. But would someone like Mark Zuckerberg be a good fit for them in terms of a president? Right? This is a guy who's made billions of dollars literally selling off your private information. All right, like, how much do we know about Facebook in terms of data mining and what it uses to sell you ads? And granted, every company that sells ads does this sort of thing. But we know that there's been a lot of shady shit that goes on with Facebook. We know that Facebook has worked actively to collude to shut down conservative viewpoints on Facebook. They have blocked certain websites, to which they had to come out and publicly apologize for that. Then they got rid of their entire news curation team. Then it went automated, which allowed fake news to run rampant because of the people upvoting it and everything else. Now they're on some weird whole new system. And I know that the news doesn't necessarily play into everything involving Facebook and the future of our country with President Zuckerberg, perhaps, but I think it definitely has part of that. It has to do with part of that. We know that fake news stories helped influence the election. We know that. So with the person who runs Facebook, having the ability to put in those kind of stories to make himself look bigger and to allow them to have higher circulation and be more public on people's profiles and spread around a lot more, has the ability in his own right of influencing an election. And I'll tell you this, I don't like any of that at all. I don't like any of that at all. I don't like the fact that Trump hasn't divested his shit either, and I call that out all the fucking time. The only way I would be even remotely comfortable with Zuckerberg running is if he divested himself entirely from Facebook, because social media still wields a very powerful sword, and it can be used as a very powerful weapon, as we saw from the last election. Meme warfare is real. If you look at the WikiLeaks documents, they actually have a whole thing on there from the CIA. So I look at someone like Zuckerberg running, and I could see it happening, especially if he's trying to get back at, let's say, Peter Thiel, and he's trying to get back at that particular side of things. And you'll be able to see elements of his own life start to kind of curate to that if he's going to go down that path. If he divests himself from Facebook or starts distancing himself from Facebook, he's got the Chan Zuckerberg initiative, which technically at this point is what's running Facebook, that he runs with his wife. He'd have to walk away from that. But then again, that would even become its own Clinton Foundation as time went on. This is where we start seeing a lot of things. We start seeing a lot of problems here. He starts soliciting donations to the Chan Zuckerberg initiative from other countries. Watch where they're coming from. Look to see where he's getting his money from. And this is where a technocrat in office does kind of freak me out. Like, I don't have an answer for whether or not he should run. I have legitimate concerns about it. We right now have a president in office who has no political experience, and yes, is fumbling along at a rate that is very interesting to watch. All I'm going to say on that. And this guy would probably be a bit more adept to handle that particular situation, but his entire perspective is still coming from that of a billionaire, of one who has more money than he ever needs, and yes, wants to do stuff with that money, but being the president is not the way to do it. And I don't know. I don't support him running unless there are certain things that are met, which would, again, divesting himself, making sure that the Chan Zuckerberg initiative has nothing to do with his political action committees or his campaign, whatever the fuck else it is. Because again, I feel that there's going to be a lot of conflicts of interest. There's going to be a lot of questionable donations from outside sources. And the last thing I want is to bring in somebody who, again, is being heavily financed by outside sources. And I'm not referring to Trump in that one. I'm talking about Clinton. So her getting all the donations from, like, I think Qatar and Saudi Arabia and all those places. So politics is a game where a lot of money can be made and a lot of money can be lost. And it influences all of us. And I'd rather people go into it that want to do it for the betterment of the country. I don't necessarily see that with Mark Zuckerberg. And I feel like this article is just trying to, it's Salon, so it's taken with a grain of salt as is. But I fear that this kind of mindset, just going, oh, well, he's a billionaire and he wants to bring in the millennial mindset, can have negative and disastrous effects. Because it kind of did for Hillary Clinton. And I'll end it with that. Hillary really wanted the millennials. Bernie had them. All right. So Bernie did work with Hillary in order to bring over that fan base. No, he didn't get a house. Look it up. He sold an old house, financed a new house. It's kind of how it goes. But he played the game in order to put himself in a position of having more power as a senator inside her administration if she won. But back on the subject of millennials, because I got sidetracked there, I apologize. They still didn't vote for her because people didn't trust her. And people might look at Mark Zuckerberg as a celebrity that's around their age, that's given them Facebook, and think they can trust him. But I don't want them to think that, because there's so much that happens in Facebook and all social media in terms of data mining, data collection, the hindrance of features, the silencing of negative opinions or unpopular opinions that can have a very devastating impact on our elections going forward. And I don't want us putting that situation essentially again. We need to move past that. And so that's why I can't get behind Zuckerberg. But I do want to know your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think that he would be a good choice? Do you think that, like, you know, we need another billionaire in office? Do you think that we're fucked if he runs and if he wins? These are things I want to know. Go ahead and write it down in the comments. My name is Mundane Matt. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day and peace out.